today we're going to be talking about psychological safety in the workplace. I am so excited to discuss this topic. But before we get into a couple of slides and our icebreaker, really this conversation is possible because of the group of folks we have here with us today. So I want to just go through and allow each individual to introduce themselves, what they do, why they're passionate about this topic, and then we'll jump right in. And if folks want to share in the chat why you're passionate about this topic, I mean, passion plus passion equals a lot more passion. So I'm down for that formula. I will turn it first over to, I see you laughing, so I'm going to make you unmute, Ricky Murray with Doer Maker. I consider him, and I know he's known really for being someone who's a master at intergenerational management, connecting with people across different age groups, sexual orientations, ethnicities, as well as just being a really innovative marketer. So please go ahead.
I should really just have you introduce me instead of me. Those sounded so nice already.
Every star has a hype person, before they perform.
You're the opening act. Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ricky Murray. I am a creative strategist at Doer Maker. We're a woman-owned ad agency that focuses on energy and sustainability. We work with a lot of clients in the energy space, from utilities to vendors, to implementation firms, really helping tell their energy stories better, having a more inclusive lens on the stories we're telling, the people we're showcasing, and really furthering that clean energy movement for people across the sector. Previous to being at Doer Maker, I worked at a research media and events firm with clean energy, where I managed a team there of about 20 individuals, on the creative marketing team. That's designers, it's web developers, it's copy editors, event personnel, things like that. But prior to that, I worked in education. And so I ran an after school program for 8 years in a school district outside of Austin, Texas, that focused on serving at-risk youth to create pathways for them for college and career readiness, through different enrichment activities and after school programming. So I have a pretty wide knowledge on working with community, working with professional stakeholders inside of utility companies. So it's a wide range there. And obviously that's a wide range of individuals with different personalities, from high school students to creative professionals. And so for me, as Angie said, that intergenerational perspective of people who I work with is pretty wide. So in my free time, I am the board chair of a nonprofit in Austin called Latinitas that focuses on getting young girls of color into media and STEM careers. And to answer your last question, Angie, and then I'm going to wrap it up, I promise. Why psychological safety is important to me. So being that creative strategist, being an innovator in the energy space, we're working with a lot of people who have bold ideas and creative perspectives. And if we are not creating places where we can express those ideas freely, authentically, appropriately, we're never going to get to the next level. Outside of even working with as a strategist, as with a previous background in education and in the nonprofit space, it's very important that in these leadership positions, that we all create environments where people feel heard and empowered, and so that innovation can be driven forward, and that we're building trust and creating that lasting impact.
I love that. Gorgeously said. And I think talking about our role as leaders, each of the folks speaking today, you followed and you've led. And there's ways you can influence a psychologically safe workplace from both perspectives, but especially when you have power in an organization, part of equity is finding ways to empower others through the power that you're given. So I think you've really teed us up well. I'll go over now to Mike Hemmingson with CPS Energy, change management expert, but also to me that includes the turning operations from equity, operationalizing. Gosh, that is a hard word to say. My goodness. You probably say it a lot more often, so I'll turn it over to you to now talk more about what you do.
I may say it more often, but I mess it up probably just as often. So I have plenty of difficulty saying it as well. So I'm Mike Hemmingson. I work for CPS Energy. We're the largest municipality in the United States. Of course, in our operational excellence group, we do process improvement, change management, as Angie said, and we do strategy work. So what we do is we help the company through changes, and without kind of diversity of thought, making sure that we have those different perspectives, it creates solutions that are just kind of the same way of thinking all the time. And you kind of get the same result you've always gotten. And especially as a municipality, we tend to have that a lot. And we're very resistant to change because we haven't always had to do it. So it's extremely important that we make sure to do that. Um, and that's why it's so important to me, because we've had so much trouble getting out of that. And by bringing in this diversity, it's something that really makes us better as an organization, safer, more ethical. And one of the best examples I have of it is kind of when we've had something in our own lives that we work on. Have you ever been doing something that you've done for years and years, and you had somebody walk in and say, "Have you ever thought of trying this?" And you're like, "Oh my God, I'm the dumbest person in the world. That's so much easier." And it's just because they haven't been doing it forever. That's where just having a simple little bit of diversity of thought helps you so grandly. Um, and we'll get deeper into those things today.
I love that. You always set the landscape so well. Very thoughtful. And that's why we're so happy you're here. Okay, we're going to round out our panel with the amazing Pastor Alonso Bell, who leads Redeem in Detroit, an incredible nonprofit. And we think all partners in the energy space have something to contribute to this conversation. So that's why you've got implementers, marketing implementers, and operations, and utilities, and nonprofits in this call, because we can all accomplish this together. So in addition to being award winning, please would you share more about us, more with us about Redeem and yourself, Pastor?
Well, hello. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, guys. I'm Alonzo Bell, pastor of Martin Evers Missionary Baptist Church, named after Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers. So, from the start, our church is all about social justice and community advocacy. And so, all my life, I've pretty much been a public servant. So, before I became a pastor, I was a teacher. So, I taught for about 15 years in Detroit public schools and charter schools. Then, from there, I started my nonprofit organization, and it was really because of one of my students. When I was doing a lot of complaining about what a lot of people were not doing to help society or whatnot, one of my students said, she raised her hand and said, "Well, Mr. Bell, what are you doing?" And so, just like Mike just said, having somebody from a different perspective say something can change your life. So that was a pivotal point in my life, and that was all due to an 11-year-old young lady. And so from there, I said I have to do something. I started Redeem Detroit, nonprofit organization. And right now, we work with young mothers. We help them graduate high school, college, or trade school, and we provide wraparound services like transportation, daycare, and other housing initiatives, all those things to help them succeed in life. And so, in all these different hats that I've worn, I've found out that the more you let people express themselves, the more comfortable they are, the better you can be as a group, and the faster you can get to the goals that you're trying to achieve. And the goals that I'm trying to achieve are so important. We can't have anything holding that back. And so, me myself, growing up, having a lot of ideas and trying to let people know about them and not being able to express myself in certain areas, I understand how that feels. And so I just believe that having a workspace that allows you to speak up and people take your ideas serious, I believe it's just an important thing for any organization to move forward and our society in whole to move forward.
I love that. Whenever someone asks me my favorite piece of advice I've ever gotten, it's that you can learn something from everyone, because
Mhm.
it's true. And when you have that attitude, it like kind of automatically creates a more respectful environment because you're valuing something about the other person. So Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for setting the stage. I'll just introduce myself real quick and then we'll get into it. So I'm Angie Ostaszewski. I'm the Director of Strategy and Innovation for SEEL. My career started in nonprofit work doing community development and community services. And then I transitioned into the energy space where I've been for the past decade. And everything I've done has really been built on innovation and equity. How can we make things more accessible and how can we make things better? It's why I love strategy. It's why I love operations. It's why I love marketing. It's why I love partnerships, because all of those are catalysts for growth and also connection. And this topic is so important to me because while I've worked very hard and I'm so grateful to have gotten to where I am today in my career, being someone who grew up, I spoke Polish before I spoke English. My parents are immigrants. And then learning mostly in my adult life, that I have ADHD and autism. There are a lot of challenges I experienced being understood and understanding others in the workplace that studying psychological safety has really helped me to understand and bridge. And so it's kind of a topic that can help to empower anyone. And that's why we have so many voices and perspectives here today, because it's about business performance, but business performance is always enhanced by equity, in my opinion. And psychological safety is a great way to demonstrate that. So, with that, I will get us into our deck and then we'll go to just chatting with our panelists, which is always the funnest part. All right, I'm just going to look for a little hello that you can see my screen. If you can.
Yep. Looks good.
Oh, yay. So probably before we start talking about psychological safety, we should know what it is. So psychological safety is a workplace climate in which workers are comfortable expressing themselves and believe they can take appropriate interpersonal risks. As described by Amy Edmondson, she's really a pioneering expert in this area. When people have psychological safety at work, they feel comfortable sharing concerns and mistakes without fear of embarrassment or retribution. They are confident that they can speak up and won't be humiliated, ignored, or blamed. They know they can ask questions when they are unsure about something. They tend to trust and respect their colleagues. This does not mean it's a perfect workplace. This does not mean it's a dreamland where no one disagrees. This means that conflict, disagreement, mistakes, repair are all part of the day-to-day operations of the business. So many of us, including myself, were raised to be perfectionists, and we spend our lives trying to prevent mistakes at the expense of learning how to bounce back and repair from those mistakes. But that's still an essential skill in business and in life. Now we kind of want to start to think about what are some signals, because all of us have an instinct for this. We're going to do a little exercise called red flag, green flag. Looking at this definition on the screen, panelists, folks in the chat, first I want to ask, it's always easier to spot red flags. What are some of the red flags that you see that you think are connected to a workplace that is not psychologically safe? And I'll give you an example because that always helps at least me to get going. So one trait of a space that is not psychologically safe is if anytime a specific person asks to talk to you, you immediately panic and are worried it's the worst possible thing that could happen, that's what they want to discuss. Yeah, like having a fear-based response is definitely just something to examine. I'm seeing some other ones coming through, so I'm going to name them as more folks bring things in. Being as collaborative as possible, setting up meetings and projects where multiple partners can contribute, bringing people together from different backgrounds and experiences. Love that, Marissa. Gossiping. True. If you are talking to someone else and you never ever talk to the person with whom you have an issue, that's probably a signal of something that should be addressed. Sales account management and research and advisory. Oh, I think that was answering what you do. Complaints without solutions, and that's the red flag. Got it. Thank you, Emily, and I'm so glad to see you here today. So we have a couple more here that are in the red flag slide, so don't look at the green flags. If the staff is constantly burnt out, that means there's something happening where the management of stress with deliverables isn't connecting. Always assuming the worst, what I just referenced, a fear of being embarrassed or humiliated, Mistakes are held against you and brought up for a long time after they occur. Lack of direct communication, so exactly what someone said about gossip, being scared to disagree. Leadership doesn't actually respond to your ideas. And I believe, Mike, this is one that you gave us where you can submit an idea and you could hear yes or no, but instead you hear nothing. So there's not a loop being closed in communication. No tolerance for risk, a yes culture, so people don't feel that they can ask questions or say no, and criticism is normalized. Okay, so now you're kind of in the groove. We're going to do the same thing again, but for green flags, information guarding. Yes, gatekeeping is real. I see that in the chat. Okay, so for green flags, same thing. What are some signals to you of a psychologically safe workplace? And would any of my fellow panelists like to give an example, since I gave our red flag example to get folks going? Mike is literally in front of a green flag. Is what it looks like.
One of my examples probably of a green flag is and it's something that we did a lot in education, and it's always embracing things with curiosity instead of I'm not even going to say instead of actually embracing things with curiosity. Huge green flag. Green shirt, green background, green flag.
Green shrub.
Yes.
Pastor has green programming, so he doesn't need a special background. So I see you came off mute. Did you have another one?
Sure. When you're in an environment where you hear people speaking in a meeting or something like that, and their ideas actually discussed a little bit further instead of just saying that's good and then on to the next, the next
Follow-up
topic.
questions.
Yes.
Specific feedback, which ties to curiosity. These themes are all interconnected. I love that. I'm also seeing in the chat consistent feedback about how to improve. And we'll just jump to the rest. Feel free to keep dropping yours. Green flags. Admit and discuss mistakes. Ask for help and feedback. So if you're struggling, you feel like you can share that and count on getting some kind of support. You feel valued. You trust your team. Um, when my team is working on stuff that we've discussed, I wait for them to come to me with when they need support. I want them to feel empowered. Validation is normalized. That's part of your normal rhythm of communication. Leadership responds to your ideas, even if it's a no. A mentality of us against the problem, not us against each other. Mistakes are tolerated. You can try something new or take a risk, and patterns are addressed as opposed to individual actions. So often we can catch one issue and we'll come down on that. And that can be discouraging for someone who maybe that was not based on their understanding, but maybe just a mistake. But when you look at patterns of behavior, that makes sense because you're looking at something that's consistently occurring and addressing it. So it can be nuanced, but these things really, really transform how a workplace feels. As to the question of why it's important, one of my favorite slides. It's very important is the answer, but this has been studied. Google's Project Aristotle was an initiative back in 2012 that looked at understanding what makes teams successful. They studied 180 teams at Google over 2 years. This is just one. There are many studies on psychological safety, but people typically consider Google to be, best in class, a very nimble company, very innovative. And they saw across these 180 teams that the number one indicator for success was psychological safety, not compensation, not clear roles and responsibilities, not perks, not work life balance. So many things we talk about all the time. And yet we don't often name psychological safety as the important issue that it is in the workplace. And so this conversation hopefully will help to normalize it more for you in your daily work and your organizations. Okay, I'm going to pop back to you guys now. Done with the slides. So now's the time where we're going to start to talk about this in more detail. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We're going to watch those to come back and answer at the end. We've allotted time. But I want to kick it off by asking Ricky, can you please I don't know why I'm pausing dramatically. It's fun. Can you share a specific example of how psychological safety improve outcomes for your team or organization? Like, let's get straight to real life.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you mentioned earlier, I am a bit of a perfectionist and I'm also extremely competitive. My strengths finder, one of my top strength finders is competition. It's really horrible. But my number one strength is communication. And I think a lot of psychological safety is rooted deeply in communication and your ability to communicate in a safe way. So, probably the most specific example that comes to mind is in my previous, I had a previous supervisor who was incredible, and he had this mantra. It's probably going to make Mike go crazy because it's not what utilities typically do, but his mantra was always fail first, that we have to fail first before we know what we're actually going to get, which really essentially equated to we're just going to try ideas. We're going to actually just try them and they're going to fail, and we have to be okay with that. So his like failure first approach, first in the beginning, made me uncomfortable. I was like, why would I want to fail first? No, I'm going to be perfect first. I'm going to be the best first. This is a direct conflict here.
Relatable.
Right, right. But essentially, he was creating such like a safe space for us to experiment with ideas. And so at this time, I was leading a marketing team of creatives who, as creative marketers who are working on graphic design, who are putting a lot of thought and effort into people, into like their artistic abilities, that work sometimes is deeply personal for them. And in order to really get like some of that best creative work and some of that deeply personal work, you have to have this safe environment to be willing to express yourself authentically and give your most authentic ideas. And this failure first approach really enabled like authentic ideas to just come to life. And I think a lot of times that environment's not embraced. It's, oh no, we can't fail because, our investors are going to look and they're going to be like, oh, you failed, no more money, you're done. But having like this safety net essentially from our CEO at the time, I think really helped foster in our leadership team that it's okay for our teams to also fail, which allowed us, as leaders to empower our teams to to be as creative as they possibly could and to really like maximize on all of their efforts and thought processes. And so creating that culture of failure first definitely helped create that safe environment for everyone.
I love that. It almost turns failure into an expectation because people that want to do well, it's very unnatural. Um, and I know you are a perfectionist, as you said, like the quality of your work is very detailed. So that's an amazing example. And I see Elizabeth in the chat said, love that. Failure is part of the process, not something going wrong. Well said.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mhm. I'll throw it over now to Pastor Bell. Do you have a story you want to share?
Oh, sure. You know what? I just have to say what Ricky said about failure first, that approach. I'm going to use that. I'm really going to pump it up. Hey, I need everybody to fail. No, on this first assignment, no, but I really like that approach. But as I can remember when I first became a pastor, I have an extreme fear of embarrassment or my reputation being maligned. So I'm kind of like a perfectionist in that way. Like, we got to do this right because everybody's looking at us. And if we do this wrong, everybody's going to talk about us. So that's how I used to be. And so when I had my team, and we're going to talk about the church aspect, we wanted to we moved into a new community, and we wanted to make sure that we reached out to all the young people in that community. So I put together something called the Youth Explosion. And because I'm a teacher, I was a teacher, I'm like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do this. And I was like, we had volunteers that were not teachers. And so I know what should be done because I'm the teacher. And this is how people are going to look at us. And so this is how we got to do it. And so I was being a little overbearing And my wife pulled me aside and she said, listen, you got to let people do the things that they're good at. Step back, let them go ahead. And I know they're volunteers or whatever, but you'll be surprised. So, I kind of had a meeting. I told them, hey, listen, you guys, I have full confidence that you can do this. I'm gonna leave it in your hands. You just call me if you need me, ask me any questions you need, tell me what I can do. And hey, we're gonna have a great time. So I did that, and I was super surprised and really happy that was one of the best youth explosions that we had. And I wasn't stressed out. And so, and then I learned something about each person that contributed to help them to, blossom in their own perspective areas of expertise. So just step back and let people fail if they have to, or if they, just let them go.
Yeah, I love that. A metaphor I've used before is people want to feel like they're part of the brain and not just the hands doing the work. When you find a way to give people at least a small piece or some piece of the ownership, it gives them motivation. And sometimes when we want to control, we end up demotivating the people we're actually trying to help succeed. So I love that example. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I almost said Magic Mike. Mike. Please, I would love to hear a story from your experience about this.
Sometimes it's magical that I get anything done, but
I empathize.
ADHD can make it hard sometimes. But to build off of both what um, Ricky and Pastor Bell said, um, sometimes giving things up is hard. I have my example. We had our state inspections for our vehicles and trailers, and unfortunately, our numbers were abysmal on getting those done on time. Uh, and we were working with a group, and trying to be perfectionist ends up shifting it from being an ethical organization and making sure things are done to when you start to fail, you hide it, you ignore it, you shift it away to where you start to become an unethical organization and making things so people don't see it, so you don't look bad, so you are kind of not being embarrassed, right? And when I worked with this group, when I first kind of brought them in to map out their process, they didn't even have really necessarily process. They had, well, I do my things and like I kind of know to do that. And when we all got into the room to map it out, they all kind of looked at each other. No one wanted to go up. And for the first 15, 20 minutes, it was just everybody looking at each other, not knowing where to go. And I said, just take your post-it notes, just write down kind of a step of what you do and just slap it anywhere on the board. Just get it. And then once and it's like, hey, it's safe. We're just putting it up here. It's not for anybody else. This is just for you and your team. Because once we kind of get it up there, we can work this together. We can start to find out what are the issues. This isn't going to anybody else. Write down, even if you can't write grammatically or any of that, this is safe. This is for us. And once the first couple started putting up there, they realized, no, this is safe. I can put it up there. We can move these. We can figure out where we are. And they went, oh my God, this is what we do. This is terrible. I'm like, well, luckily we can fix it. We know what's going on now. And they're like, yeah, we can actually fix some of these things right now. And they went from a very not good percentage to now it's been, I think, 27 months of 100% completion on time. And in a span of about 7 months, we completed that project. And they did very well. But when we don't have that safety, we don't have that um, ability to do that, and the diversity of thought that we created by bringing the different groups that touch it in and a couple of outside people to help and look at things objectively, which I kind of help them do. We created bad ethics where we hide things and we don't allow people to be embarrassed and be safely embarrassed. So we need to watch for those things, and then we can't improve effectively.
I I love that. And I think it's important if you're a leader to think about when was the last time I admitted a mistake? When was the last
Yeah.
time I shared that I struggle with something? Because again, we all want to put our best foot forward, but sometimes we have to really think about what behavior am I modeling through my everyday actions, and does it align with the direction I'm giving to my team? I think you also pointed out that access and transparency are an important part of psychological safety. So often, if someone asks you information, are you asking yourself, well, why should I share that? Or why wouldn't I share that? You know,
Mhm.
which reaction do you have? Are you like, I'd like to figure out how to give this over? Or am I fearful or concerned that sharing something will just empower someone to say I'm doing something wrong, sabotage me? Those reactions are a strong indicator that it's not a psychologically safe workplace. So I so appreciate that example. The one other thing I'd like to share before we jump to the next question, where I'll be throwing it over to Ricky first, is in innovation work, there's a lot of crossover with psychological safety because you're testing new ideas. The whole basis of it is testing and evaluating. And so having the experience of launching an innovation portfolio was such a powerful learning for me, um, where we would think about what's the goal for the pilot, and we're in energy. People are thinking, okay, a number of customers served, energy savings achieved, and working with eSource. I remember it was like, no, 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 no. Those are regular goals. Pilots have learning goals, evaluation goals. It's not, let's reach 1,000 people with heat pumps. It's, will multifamily customers in the upper region of this county participate in a heat pump program if we meet conditions XYZ? Like very specific questions of things, questions you want to answer. And even that is a reframing of, do you only have outcome based goals in your organization, or do you have learning goals or growth goals? Because those are different. And sometimes if you don't plan holistically, they are in contrast with one another. I see the hand. I'm high fiving you, and also would love to hear your thought.
Yeah, you touched on something very important, which is ensuring that what you incentivize aligns with what you really want. Our metrics many times are just something that we can get and we can achieve. That kind of, yeah, it kind of aligns a little bit, but we have to truly incentivize what we want. And if it just kind of aligns, we're going to cheat the system to make sure that we meet our goal. So then we can get our bonus, or we can make our team look good, or we just don't get hammered if we're in an especially rough workplace, or we just don't want to get um, talked to by 8 different bosses, right? If we go back to the Office Space movie or something like that, right? So we just don't get annoyed. If we make goals that truly incentivize what we want out of something, that will lead us to actually achieving that.
I love that. And my therapist has always said, think about your actions. Are they reacting to something, or are they in pursuit of your goals? So my therapist would agree with you. um, okay, I'm going to jump to the next one. And I just want to thank you guys for everything you've shared already. So, psychological safety, again, has a specific definition that can sometimes be confused with other things. So, I would love to task y'all with the question, what is the difference between a psychologically safe workplace versus one where everyone is friends? And I actually was going to go to Ricky this time, but Mike, you were just unmuted. So, I'll toss it to you.
So for me, having a psychologically safe workplace, it allows a lot of different things. So I'll give one big example of it is when it's unsafe, there's not time to answer questions. You have to have it right now. If you have to have it right in the meeting, you have to be so prepared. It can't be, let me find the best answer for you, or anything like that. You try and do all your work within the meeting. You try and do, so you have a half hour or an hour, or maybe you have one great big meeting that's 2 or 3 hours. When should you actually be doing work? It should be outside of these meetings, right? They should be a check-in. So one of the big things that the psychological safety allows is for that perceived failure to allow for time, to allow for your best answers to come forward, to allow for that maybe what could be perceived as a little bit of failure, but to be able to get things on time, to be able to figure out what your best answer is, to fall into that, to then truly set yourself up for success by finding what those gaps are, what those issues are. So then we can set ourselves up in the system to make our system grand. Then we can set up systemic processes that will make it so we won't fail in that way again, at least that same way. And then we can improve it over time because it's a living process that we keep improving for. If we find another way to fail in it, hey, we're going to fix that part. We're going to fix the next part that fails. That's how you make something that's truly safe and truly great.
I love the comment about process and evolution because process is so important. But also, what is a process? Are we serving the process? Is the process serving us? Is it how we do our work or is it capturing how we do our work? Like which informs the other? But it's really both ways, right? And I just really like how you explain that. So thank you. All right. Who's next? No. Pastor Bell, I was wondering if you have a comment on this question.
Sure. When I think about the workplace where it's simply friends versus a safe, psychologically safe workplace, what comes to mind is if I'm with my friends throughout the day in the workplace and we're just friends, I think that would tend to make me want to answer things that won't hurt my friends' feelings. So you can find yourself holding back from having crucial conversations or telling someone on your team that's your friend an honest answer. So I think a psychologically safe workplace allows you to be free to give true advice to or true ideas or true to yourself and be willing to uh, feel comfortable saying I'm not going to hurt somebody's feelings because they know that this is a psychologically safe place that we all can express our ideas without feeling that we're going to say something out of line and somebody's going to take it the wrong way. And so I just feel that versus a group of friends, if you still don't have the psychologically safe space, you can be there with a lot of friends and still not feel safe.
You can have psychologically unsafe friendships
Hmm.
Yeah.
that
Right.
do not address issues but avoid them. Yeah, that I love that. Ricky, you're already unmuted. Let's go. What are your
Because
thoughts?
I just feel what Pastor Bell said so deeply. I
Mhm.
think friendship essentially prioritizes harmony, where psychological safety prioritizes an openness and like an ability to learn essentially. Um, and so for me, a psychological kind of really going off of what Pastor Bell said, a psychologically safe workplace is different from one where people are just simply friends. Like I said, friendship prioritizes harmony and comfort. That's where the tough conversations get ignored. But unfortunately, part of having a psychologically safe workplace does require discomfort. It does require uncomfortable conversations. It does require you to have those same crucial conversations. And so with psychological safety, you're creating this environment where people are able to speak freely, kind of in contrast directly to, I'm not going to tell my friend, well, I will, that she looks horrible in an outfit. I would, but maybe Angie, you might not. I don't know. Um, but my friendships are psychologically safe though, so I will say that. So I can say the outfit doesn't look nice, but really, it's about those crucial moments where it's less about keeping everyone comfortable and more about really building the trust that allows for that openness and that accountability and learning aspect, even when things are a bit uncomfortable.
I think even that metaphor is something that you can lean into. Like sometimes, if any of you are ever thinking, oh, that was a little thing, there's no point in bringing it up, catch yourself. The little things are the time to build the skills to process conflict. So if a team member forgets a deadline, maybe you don't say something now. You don't say something the second time. You don't say something the third time. Maybe it's the sixth time when you finally point it out. Well, at that point, it's a really big deal. It's a lot more stressful. It's been going on a long time. So, as uncomfortable as it is, Addressing the small things is one, more productive, but it's also good practice. This is a low stakes conversation. Hey, um, you know, thank you for sending me a picture of your outfit. There, that top is cute, but you've definitely told me to tell you if I don't like something you're wearing. So, I'm just gonna tell you that I just don't think you'll look back and like this outfit. Okay, that's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but it's practicing a skill and it's low stakes. So if it kind of annoys them, it's not like, "Oh my god, the friendship is ruined." It's, "Oh my god, she's worn 30 outfits I hated and I never said anything and all her entire Instagram feed is just so it looks atrocious." I'm going too far with the metaphor, but, like, those are the times to do it because what we end up doing is we push off, and then when it happens, it's extremely stressful for both parties because there is so much that needs to be aired out, and that's where you don't wanna be. So speaking of, I
And
wanna go over oh, yes, go ahead.
is it all right if I just got to say one thing that you have done to help so many husbands right now? I think you saved a whole bunch of marriages right there. So kudos.
Thank you. You can hire me to rephrase the comments you make to other people at your leisure. Here to help. um, Before we turn it over to just some practical tools to take with you and audience questions, I just want to give one real quick opportunity for each of you to share, how do you soften those tough conversations? Because a lot of this comes down to making the decision to speak to others, speaking to them with kindness and respect, and then also admitting when you've messed up. So, give us some tips on just like how to get that going by 12:20 Central Standard Time so that we may turn it over to Q&A.
Yeah, I'll make mine quick. So I have participated in so many trainings and education on crucial conversations, and then now working in the energy space. There's a partner of Doermaker who we work very closely with in Color, and they in Color talks a lot about listening to be heard rather than listening to respond. And so I think first and foremost, when having those tough conversations, you need to really have that approach in your head of no, let me listen so that this person feels heard. We have to be open. We have to have an inviting space. I can't just listen to respond because typically when we listen to respond, it's in defense. It's let me defend what just happened. I have to respond to talk about these other things. And so listening to be heard rather than listening to respond, I think is the first cornerstone of that, um, to really have that foundation of psychological safety. Boom, I did that in a minute.
Love that. And shout out to Christy Within Color, who is in the chat.
Christy,
Love
yes,
that.
yes.
Pastor Bill, Mike, any final comments before Q&A?
Well, you know, the way I like to do things is I like to give the person all of the good things that they and tell them about all the great things that they do, how great they are, how important they are to the team. And then I like to express the mission. And one thing you said earlier, and I think it was a green flag comment, is us against the problem, not us against one another. So we have this big major issue, and we want to get to the bottom of the issue so that our work can be great, so that we can be the most productive we can. And I also like to talk about the mistakes that I made first before I go into maybe that crucial topic that we have to talk about.
Amazing. Us Against the Problem is also a good couples counseling one. Offshoot of this webinar. Mike, please, your
So,
thoughts.
big one is time. So time is a really powerful tool. You don't have to give that feedback on the thing. You can go, you know what, have a great time, whatever, because people get their emotions up right away, especially when they have an idea or they just finished something. Their emotions are really high on it. So you can say, hey, I can see you're really excited about this. I'm excited to give you feedback. Let me digest it a little bit so I can give you some good feedback. And it may suck out loud, but they're emotionally tied to it at the moment. And if you tell them the truth, you're going to absolutely break them. but especially when you can get some time, you can give them some really good input. You can break it down better for them. They're less tied to it. It's less going to break their hearts, and you're going to be able to give them a better feedback, and they're going to be able to receive it better at that point too. So time really softens blows and allows you to have that dialogue between you two, especially when you have to have tough conversations. So time is going to be very key when you have to have tough conversations with people.
I love that. And so I've heard in so many workplaces, we need to address our culture of urgency. This is a reason why. Because people, when immediately responding, are usually coming from a place of emotion, even if it's positive. And I know over the course of my career, I've always felt deflated when I got very detailed criticism and very vague affirmation. I can list 8 reasons why I didn't like this, but you're doing a great job. I want to believe what you're telling me, but man, can you really go off on the bad stuff? Where's the good stuff? Go off on the good stuff too. It's something that we are all thinking in the spirit of being productive, of teaching people, but you have to also think about, especially as a leader, how do I best position each person to receive the information I'm giving them? I love that. I'm going to quickly share 2 slides with some immediate actions y'all can take to start to enhance psychological safety in your workplace. I'll ask if you have a question, drop it in the chat now so we can jump right over to it after we look at these because they'll be pretty quick. All right. So these are themes that you've definitely heard in the webinar today, but we want to boil down this concept into a list of things that you can do that support it on an individual basis, regardless of where you work or your position. So make a habit of asking at least one clarifying question before responding to a team member's idea. I know someone specifically said this today, even though they didn't make this slide and I didn't talk to them about the slide. So the synergy is cool. Use the hand raise feature in Teams. You may feel comfortable jumping in. There are lots and lots of people who don't. So even if you are extroverted, if you use the hand raise feature, it can help other people feel more encouraged to speak up because there's a process and they don't have to feel like they're trying to jump in, especially when no one has video on. And it's like, do I go now? Compare your meeting notes to the organizers. Bring together all of the sources of documentation and have one that includes what everyone took away because everyone has different things they pick up and listen for. This one I already talked about. Keep that information and constructive criticism specific and actionable. Us against the problem. Shift from what went wrong to what can we learn from this. Usually, if an issue occurs and all of your conversation is backwards looking at, I need to figure out exactly who did wrong, when, and what happened, that it just creates so much fear and anxiety. But people are still prone to share that. But if you put it in a positive context of what did we learn, people are sharing the information not to, receive something negative in response, but to be better next time. Ask for feedback before you provide feedback. If you haven't asked someone for feedback in a minute, ask. And if you don't know how to ask, I recommend Googling the Stop, Start, Continue exercise because it gives you a very nice structured framework to do that. Encourage reasonable risk taking. Publicly celebrate recognizing and learning from mistakes in addition to accomplishments. Be curious. Normalize disagreement. Clearly delegate decision making. If you want someone to feel empowered to make a decision, you got to tell them. You got to tell them clearly because people want to do the right thing. And if they don't know whether it's right to go ask or decide themselves, can create a lot of stress around what's the right thing to do. Take time to debrief and actually listen to the feedback and then close the loop with the group telling them how you implemented it. Quick tests instead of big changes and invite individual and project feedback. The other side of this is how we approach ourselves. As someone who has frequently beaten myself up for not being perfect, this slide is for me as well as for everyone in attendance. So perfection is impossible. Seriously, you will make a mistake. You will make it again, probably. You will probably make it a third time. Probably not all in one week, but it will keep happening. Don't assume it's about you. This is one that I know is one that I try to focus on because it can be challenging. I put so much of my passion into my work, and then when something doesn't go well, I internalize that it's because of me. There's so many reasons things happen in the world. Your friend might cancel dinner because they have to go help their sibling take care of sick kids. It might not always just be because they don't want to see you. That translates to work as well. Know what motivates you and communicate that. Like if you know you're motivated by, um, people publicly recognizing your work, say that. That's just true. If you're motivated by people leaving you alone to finish your work because they trust you, great. Say that. Set your limits ahead of time. Get multiple opinions. If you always go to the same person for an opinion, you're probably really embedding yourself in one viewpoint. Diversity of feedback is good. Busyness is not a badge of honor. Check in with your body. That's where we feel a lot of our emotions, like anxiety and distress. If you're heated and going to respond to an email and you're like, oh, I feel warm, I feel tension in my chest or neck, those are signals to think, ooh, maybe I should wait. Talk about burnout, log your accomplishments, know your triggers. And again, time is very important, as Mike said. I tried to do that fast, and then, of course, I got into it and I talked too long. So, with that, I want to thank our panelists again, and I want to see, does anyone have questions or comments they want to share before we wrap up today? No, you guys were like so comprehensive. We have no questions. Well, then I want to ask if Mike, Ricky, Pastor Bell, do any of you have a final thought you'd like to share about this conversation before we end today?
The only thing I'd just end with is, if anyone's looking for resources, one of the best places I've ever attended a training on for for psychological safety was through a Crucial Conversations workshop. They also have a book, but a lot of the practice, they identify a lot of really good practices in there to harness that psychologically safe workplace. And so if anyone needed advice on where to turn, that's probably a good place to start.
And we also offer those trainings.
Oh,
at
and
SEEL.
there you go.
But not the branded Crucial Conversations. I've taken those and they're great. But on equity and psychological safety and also workforce development, we got you.
I would just like to say I really enjoyed myself. I really had a great time, and I was taking notes as Ricky and Mike and yourself, Angie, as you were talking. I'm still learning, and put that into your psyche. You're going to always learn. You're always learning, and my main thing to any leader is to just be nice, be concerned, and don't be a know-it-all, because nobody cares what you know until they know that you care, and that's what
Ooh,
the way to go ahead and lead.
bars.
So thank you.
I love that. And I'm always learning from you as well. That's what's amazing about getting to have spaces like this. Mike?
Yeah. So as you start to move through this, you can't only do this and be psychologically safe if your environment's psychologically safe. You have to essentially lead the charge. And if you're not able to, the environment really isn't right for you, right? So you have to take a serious look at it. And sometimes you're going to be fighting against the flow for a while until you can start to change that flow of the place around you. And sometimes it's going to be seeming like it's you alone until other people realize that, hey, it's not that bad. Hey, I can make it very different if I do this too. And you get a few people to change with you. It's going to be tough if your organization or your area is not like that. And then you have to make that tough decision. Is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to be to try to change it if you're not feeling that right there? So that's something very tough to consider. But you have to make that decision for you and your situation. There's a lot of tools to be able to improve processes and all of that out there. Many different methodologies. So check that out as well. And again, that's attacking the system and not the person, right? So make sure to look at those as you do this.
Thank you. The last thing I'll say, in addition to thank you to everyone who attended today, is this is something that truly impacts business operations. If there's one thing you take away to tell others today, this is just another case that equity is not something you pursue separate from other operational or organizational goals. They enhance one another. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank you guys. And it was really a dream come true for me to be able to present about this topic. So have a great day, everybody. It's Friday.
Bye. Thank you so much, Angie.
See you guys later. Thank you,
so much,
Angie.
Angie. Thank you for everybody that attended.
Thank you.